Hi everyone, and welcome to Straight Talk with Steph, me, Steph Beatty, and today we are in the Women in Property series, and we've got the beautiful, amazing, talented Karen Livock with us today from Surf House Interiors. Hi, you're right, Karen?
Hi, how are you?
I'm all right. I've had a busy day. How's your day been?
Oh, yeah, busy actually. Good
What-
busy. So, yeah,
I
good
know there
day.
are worse problems to have. I think as entrepreneurs, we're happy being knackered. so,
Yeah,
so we
I
know
think I
we've got.
started work about 4 o'clock this morning, if I'm honest. So,
Oh my
yeah,
God, I don't know how you do it. I know you get up really early. Are you a morning person?
yes,
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, I have to
that
be, I think, but I'll be, yeah, but I fall asleep quite early. So, yeah, I suppose it's just a shift in your day. Yeah.
Oh my God, I just don't know anyone does it. I don't function early in the morning. I know sometimes with the gym in the morning, I think you've texted me on occasion or you've been in the gym and I don't know how the hell she does. I don't know how anyone does that in the morning. It absolutely baffles me. I'm not one of these people, you hear in like entrepreneurial circles, Karen, where they go, get up at 5 a.m., have a nice bath, have a miracle morning, do some journaling, drink some unicorn juice and like have your best day. I think I'd rather kill. I feel murderous in the
Yes.
morning.
No, it's not. It's not quite as regimented as that. It's just that I happen to be awake. So the minute I'm awake, I stick my laptop on, but then I have to stop and obviously get on with life. And then, yeah, so there we are. But I just managed to get, if I can get an hour or two done, at least that frees up time during the day, so it's fine. Yeah, it's
Well,
good. It works.
talking of free time, then you did find some free time to write a chapter in Women in Property
I
Volume One.
did. I enjoyed it. It was so much fun actually, because rarely do you get to tell your own story. It was good.
It was brilliant. Your chapter, honestly, like was saying this to all the women I'm interviewing and all the women that I've spoken to, and I'm like, I just loved it. There's so much variety. Everybody's book is so different, but every story is powerful. So I think yours is such like an awe. I'm in awe of it, but it's such an honest and raw account of your property journey. But your chapter begins by saying that it wasn't really a story of like smooth success. It's been more of a roller coaster for you, hasn't it?
Very much so, and I think all you seem to get, isn't it? We're all struggling with social media in the sense that you see everybody's best bits, and I thought this is an opportunity to say, do you know what? I'm going to tell you the truth. This has not been the best bits. This has not been an easy journey. And if you think that doing property or what have you, or you look at the pictures and you see the things that I post and you think, oh, look at her, she's got it sorted. Absolutely haven't. And I think, to know what somebody's been through over the last, whatever it is now, 20 odd years, you kind of go, "Oh, right, okay."
Yeah.
So I thought, and actually when you start to sort of roll it all out, you think, "Oh, yeah, wow." And you realize how quickly the time's gone in the time since you kind of
Yeah. Oh my God. 20
yeah.
years it's about 20 years, is it? You said.
Well, yeah, because well, not since I bought my first house, but that's an awful lot longer, but never mind. But since the whole Florida experience and things, when I really took it seriously, but no, I bought my first house at 23, and got into doing the old sort of, buy a house, renovate it a bit, or not, as in the first case was because I didn't have any money, and sell it on at a profit. And you start to go, oh, okay.
Yeah.
So that was a live-in situation, which again is, hasn't always worked out great because of the work that goes on. You've got to live in it with whatever else is going on in your life. So I did it that way. But no, it's about 20 years now since we made the jump to invest abroad. And that's where really the roller coaster
Oh my God.
took
And
me. Oh my God, I can't even
that's
get oh.
mental. Like, Karen, I know a bit about that story anyway, because obviously we're friends and we've had this
Mm.
conversation. But when I actually read it in the chapter, I was like, oh my fucking God. I'm sorry. I'm not apologizing for swearing because for fuck's sake, I couldn't fucking believe it. And it was mental. Like,
Mm.
so you've got that house in Florida that taught you some pretty tough lessons.
Yes.
Do you want to tell us about? I know it's in the book and people can go and buy the book, but tell us about the Florida lesson, Florida house, and the lessons that you've learned from
Oh
that.
God, well, in a nutshell, really, we were and not lured, but it was a romantic dream, wasn't it? So let's go and buy there. And we knew someone who'd done it. So went and stayed in her house. And then in and amongst the holiday, with at that time 3 kids, we went to start to view properties, and we found this one, and it was actually off plan. So there's the first thing. I mean, in fairness, the builder was great, but we bought this house, remortgaged our own house to take the money out of it. So there was another lesson in terms of, you're
Yeah.
kind of in it for far more than you realize at the time.
Mm.
But again, we were all sort of positive, and I think you got to keep positive. Yes, we're going to do it. Didn't understand the first thing about buying a house abroad, didn't understand the whole escrow system, didn't understand any of it. And it was at the time when properties were going up, and in that part of the world, even though there was a lot of development, property prices were escalating massively, and this thing increased in value quite considerably in a short period of time. I mean, we bought it for 302,000, and within 6-7 months, it was 380,000, at least its value, because we had offers on it. We're like, no, thank you very much. We're going to rent it out. And at that point, it was washing its face. However, we completed on that in 2005, and we had a good few, I wouldn't say a good few years, because we got excuse me, we got sort of shafted by one property manager who, and then
Oh,
took another one on, who actually, when we finally came out of it, found they'd also been stiffing us for the pool heat. But you can't, by that point, that was negligible, to be fair. Um, and of course, you hit the crash of 2008, 2009, and because of the massive amount of building that had gone on, the property just literally plummeted.
right.
So we'd been sending money month after month anyway, because obviously there's constant repairs. As I found out with serviced accommodation, people don't respect the property that you've got.
No.
It's a windy part of the world. So even with a lovely pool and a pool screen, we kept losing panels and everything needed constant repair. So we were constantly sending money. So rather than this dream of, wow, this is going to be a money generating asset, which at least on paper it appeared it was going to be, it
Mm.
wasn't. So then, of course, when it devalues, you look at it and go, "Oh my god!" So now we've spent 302,000 on a house that's now valued at
Oh
$145,000. Wow!
my
So
God.
you think about that. We're taking money out of your own house. It's now worth less than half of what we bought it for, and we've been spending money every month to keep this thing going. It was just, but actually, we took the view, and I think a lot of people in property, you've got to go into it with the long-term mindset, because otherwise
Yeah.
so we were kind of like, no, we'll keep going. But of course, at that point, we continued to hemorrhage money until 2012, when my husband lost his job, and we were kind of like, can't do it.
Yeah.
Not that it was crisis, but it was just like, this has got to go now. So we had to
Yeah.
sell it, and we did actually at that point sell it, luckily, for 145,000, which was because it was tidy, and it was styled, and it was nice. But
Yeah.
yeah, so yeah, we lost an awful lot of money. Into
That's scary as well. Like there's a lot of people that we started the same. We pulled money out of our house that
Yeah,
got us going. But at one point we were like, oh my God, like we've got more to take.
yeah,
We've had some, I wouldn't say shitty deals, but they weren't the best deals. And
mm,
we've all been there. We all could have done better deals, but that was
yeah,
from taking it out of your own house, putting it in something that you think's gonna, well, in theory, on paper,
yeah,
should have made loads of money,
yeah,
and then it didn't.
yeah.
I don't want to be like, what have you learned from it? Obviously, there's a substantial loss there, monetary. But what have you taken away from that? Have you got anything that's negatively affected your decision making from that to
Yes,
this
it made us
day?
very
Or
nervous for an awful long period of time. I
yeah,
think you kind of think, wow, lucky escape, because the people around us had gone bankrupt on the same development. At the time when we bought it, we knew someone who was buying 2 or 3, and you kinda like, "Oh, how
mm,
lovely," you know? They
yeah,
ended up in a really difficult
oh,
position, and, we know another couple of other people on the development that we'd bought on, that were in really dire straits. We were lucky we didn't. But,
mm,
you know, I'm not saying it was an easy period, because it absolutely wasn't. So I kind of we were burnt, I suppose, financially and emotionally, to sort of say,
yeah,
"Wow, where's the dream? We've been sold this dream of, or we had this dream of wow, property's the investment to make. Why for us is it absolutely the opposite? Why are we hemorrhaging cash instead of making it?"
yeah,
Um, 'Cause you don't tend to think about the global factors at the time or what have you. We went into it with no training, so again, that's one of the things. We were I think we got rose-tinted glasses on in the sense of it was really nice to think, well, it's a lovely thing to have. Long-term view, we'll go and live out there. We can have some fabulous holidays and not pay for them. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's not exactly what happened. We did have some fabulous holidays. It cost us a flipping fortune. You know, so something in the region of over £200,000, not dollars. And you kind of like, wow, okay, they were expensive trips.
Yeah.
I think also there was an awful lot of things that went on what in that in terms of and it sounds awful not to trust people, but actually learned not to trust people because we dealt with some unscrupulous people.
Yeah.
Um, and we managed to stand our ground, and I learned to really look at the detail, and I learned to trust my instincts, which has kind of
Yeah.
paid off since. But I also learned that actually there's no point in sitting wallowing in this. You just literally have to keep going, because if
Yes.
you don't, you become one of the real casualties, and the choice is yours ultimately. You've got to keep going. So I did learn that, and I think it strengthens you up. It doesn't feel
Yeah.
like it, to be fair, most of the time, but I think if you look back and you go, wow, yeah, it's
And
made
even
me tougher. Yeah.
And even that decision, you were like, actually, no, obviously your husband lost a job and we're like, we can't keep carrying on with this. Just to be able to make that decision, that's hard for people to
Yeah.
accept it. But
Yeah.
you've had to walk away from other deals as well. You've had
Yes.
the seafront apartment, the cottage with
Yes.
land, and you talk about trusting your gut. So how did it just come from that deal in Florida? Have there been other deals
No,
where you thought,
I think I think many of us have got that anyway from a personality trait. But yes, that taught me an awful lot.
yeah,
Um, you know, I've always had this sense of like, I'm not quite sure, but also I want to. Doesn't makes me sound really conscious, but I am. But I kind of want to know the facts.
yeah,
It's knowing the facts that got me out of having to pay, over $2,000 of a water bill that was actually not my fault, somebody else, and that was where somebody was trying to do a cover up. But I was
mm,
persistent, and I think once you know something doesn't quite feel right, then actually don't trust that. Go and get the detail for yourself.
yeah,
And that's what's happened with the properties, because obviously, yeah, we pulled out the cottage with land, and that we were going to turn the garage into a second property. It was lovely. But of course, you start to look at it and go, wait a minute, it's got a felt roof and it's got all of those things. And let me just work this through. And it didn't feel right. Yes, the waterfront apartment was a real, because it just, again, I was kind of like, no, there's something not right here.
yeah,
It's being sold as a holiday let property. How come none of them around are? How come it doesn't say you can do it in the free
mm,
in the leasehold? It doesn't say you can't, but when something doesn't say you can't, it doesn't actually tell you that you can. So even I think is it says in the chapter, the solicitor had said, I can see no reason why you can't do it. I can find no documentation. And you kind of go, oh well, okay, that's a yes then. It's not a yes. And I just knew it wasn't a yes, proved
yeah.
right. And actually, knowing obviously the sort of area and the things that have gone on, I think that was a lucky escape. For
Oh
2
my God,
reasons.
yeah,
One, because I think I'd have lost phenomenal amounts of money on having to tank all the outbuildings out for
yeah,
damping and all sorts of things,
yeah.
you know, but because I didn't want to be stuck with any fines for the fact that I'd set up a holiday let that actually I didn't have the permission in the lease to do.
Yeah,
And
and
it's
they've
things
yeah,
like that. I
yeah,
think if you think something's not right, don't go into it unless you've got it in writing.
yeah,
And
and
even
that's
then, you've kind of got to question it, because I did get an email from the solicitor saying I can see no reason why not. And I'm not criticizing them. I think they did what they thought was right.
yeah, but
But
if something doesn't feel right though, it probably isn't, and
yeah,
do you know what? I had a similar experience, funnily enough, with some
yeah,
seafront apartments.
yeah,
We were gonna buy a couple of them in a block, and I spoke to the leaseholder and I said, this is what we want. It's not the leaseholder, sorry, the freeholder. And I said, this
yeah,
is what we want to do. I want to
yeah,
turn these. He said, yeah, I can give you a letter away from the freehold to say you can have these as Airbnbs,
yeah.
service accommodation. But I wasn't happy with the structural integrity of the building.
Mhm.
The floor was bouncing. It was like a trampoline. We were going through the legal process and everything was checking out okay, but I just wasn't happy. The freeholder was a bully, pulled out of the deal, was a bit of a dick, to be honest. And then I found out later on at a networking event that the person who after me had tried to buy these properties couldn't get lending on it. They wouldn't loan on it because of the structural integrity of the joist. So
There
I'm
you
like,
go.
something wasn't right. I
Yeah,
wasn't, even though there was the paperwork to say
yeah,
the flooring was right, but you learn to trust your gut the more you go on.
yeah,
And I think that that's a massive lesson in the
yeah,
book for other people reading your chapter, is that
yeah,
you, as you go on, it's
yeah,
okay
yeah,
to walk away from things, isn't it? And it's
yeah.
okay to not,
It is okay
yeah,
to walk away, and that's one of the things that I wanted to say in the chapter, because I think a lot of people go into property or property related thinking, "Oh my god, everybody else is making a smashing success of this." Well, that's all everybody's gonna tell you, and that was an opportunity to actually say, "Do you know what? It has been a bloody roller coaster."
yeah,
You know, and
yeah.
some of this, God, and if you want us, it's been a water ride, let alone, and we've got royally soaked, on a number of occasions. You know what I mean? It's not just been, I've not just been tipped upside down. I've been tipped upside down, dumped on, and soaked. And it's, but I think, but I'm still riding it. Do you know what I mean? You know.
Then,
So
but
you
it
know,
has been a roller coaster for you, hasn't it? It has,
yeah. I
because
mean, I couldn't think of any other way to start the chapter with sort of saying, look, I'm not going to give you any bull here. Basically, I am going to tell you that actually mine has not been a glamorous story, really. But I do caveat that with yet, because you keep going,
yeah.
you
And
know?
if you wouldn't change I think, if it doesn't challenge you, it doesn't change you. It shapes your life, it shapes your decisions.
Yeah,
And but I wanna you did start the chapter as well. And
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
you describe yourself as the support act.
Yes.
And you use obviously all of those skills and talents you've got in interior design. And I know you've helped me with some of
Mm.
mine, to help others in property. So what does that role mean to you then?
You see, well, that's the thing. I think, you get people who'll say, oh, I do this or I do that as part of my business, and this is my business. My role fundamentally is to support other people in property to make the best of the properties that they've got, make the best of the decisions that they've made. So I am supporting. And in that sense, my role makes me invisible, and I'm perfectly okay with that, because it's not about me, it's about them. I work with my clients to know what they want to achieve. I always say that my interiors are simply the toolkit, like an electrician or a builder or what have you, because ultimately we're all doing something to get you, the client, what it is you want. And if that means that I come in and I stage you a lovely property and it sells very quickly, that's fantastic. But it isn't about how pretty the staging looks, although I make every effort I can
Yeah.
to make it look fantastic to get you the results. But ultimately, having been through what I've been through, I don't want you to have to go through it.
Yeah.
I will support you to do that. And I think that's what's allowed me to take I'm not saying a different slant, but a slightly different slant, and position myself as saying, I am here to work for you to support your journey,
Yeah.
and I'm just one of your power team effectively. So that's why I'm the support act. At the moment, yes, I do work on my own things, but I'm supporting everybody else, homeowners, investors, whoever wants me to help them.
Yeah, and you did that in you've had some amazing results for your clients, and we know that, and
Yes.
like the testimonials speak for themselves. You transformed this property in Swanland that struggled to sell for months, which is
Oh my God.
phenomenal.
Yeah.
So
Again, it sounds silly, but I do get somewhat emotionally attached with this. But actually, that's where you can get better results, I think, because I knew what the clients wanted. I mean,
yeah,
this one was steeped in emotion. This was a family who'd inherited a Scandi kit house, a 1980s Scandi kit house. And anyone that knows Swanland in Hull would know that it's a really nice area with some
mm,
stunning properties. And this property stood in a beautiful plot of land. And in itself, it was lovely. It was just very dated on the inside. However, it still had, it's really weird because part of it was super contemporary, as you would
yeah,
expect, and to be honest, it's the only sauna I've ever staged as well, which is flipping fabulous. Um, but it had been on the market for about 4 or 5 months, and they'd had over 40 viewings on this property. And this is a family that inherited it from the parents, so you can understand the
Ah,
emotion. On
yeah.
top of that, there were 4 siblings and not all of them wanted to go ahead with staging, but the 2 that did kind of just bit the bullet. So it was a part consultation and part staging. So they did things that I advised, like paint the garage, jet wash the front, all of the stuff. I put wreaths and hanging baskets and all of that sort of stuff. But that one, I went in and I thought, right, what we've got to do is show people this space because actually this place is fabulous.
Mm,
Yes, it's all orange pine, and yes, it is a little dated, but wow, what a space.
mm,
Even the kitchen all it needed was a little bit of dressing. So I staged that. There was the one room that makes me laugh actually is there was like a utility room that was an eclectic mix of cabinets, but it had got this sink, and the only way I can describe it, Steph, is it looked like a bucket. It was plastic, it was blue, and when plastic kind of ages and it starts to
yeah.
peel away.
Brittle
This
and
was the
yeah.
sink, and I'm like, how on earth do I turn this utility room with a big stain on the floor to look like a utility room? Do you know what? I can't. I'm going to make it a boot room. So I literally took some wellies. I bought some tools. I put some seed trays and things like that. I filled this plastic bucket full of the fake foliage, made it into a little gardening room.
Oh,
We
wow.
instantly changed it. Do you know, it was no longer a, "Oh my god, I need to rip the utility room
Yeah.
out." It's like, "Oh my god, I can come in from this superb garden straight into the house, and I can wash up before I've got to come in. Oh, that works." So
That's so creative.
it's little things like that.
But
Um,
that's so creative, and that's the thing, it's like,
yeah,
people don't realize you've got the eye for it, and I don't think
yeah,
it's not just a job, it's not just a business, and I can say this obviously because I've worked with you and you've helped me, and
yeah,
you've got such a talent and an eye for that. But you mentioned that that property was inherited, and we know that when we go into inherited
yeah,
properties, there's always a level of sentiment. It's like when you do an assisted sale and then you start
yeah,
bashing the house around, and they're like, "Oh my God, this is my mum's house," or
yeah,
and there's always going to be that level of
yeah,
sentiment there. But how do you then, like, especially home staging, I think is quite still a relatively new concept for some sellers. So
yeah,
how do you
yeah.
communicate the value of it? Because I know the value of it hands down, especially when clients might be like hesitant to invest that like up front.
I think now that I've got, a stream of them, under my belt, it's to show the results that you've got, but also because I can empathise, because I am quite happy to say, "Look, I fully understand what it's like not to have a property to sell. I fully understand the financial impact," that you
Mm,
go in, but you also go in sensitively.
yeah.
There were certain things they didn't want in the sense of, she said, "Look, I know you're gonna create a nice feeling to it, but I don't want any Buddhas out." And I said, "I'm not going to put Buddhas." I had to listen to what they were telling me
Yeah.
about their parents so that I could be sympathetic to it.
Yeah.
And
Mm,
because they were, I think, a Swedish family, and the parents had brought this kit house over from Sweden, it was trying to say, okay, I've got to do something that is going to make you feel really pleased on behalf of your parents. I've had one
yeah.
other client say to me, "I really feel like I've done the right thing by my dad."
Oh,
Now that's what you're getting to. And by spending that time with the client and doing things that you might not ordinarily do, like going round and cleaning or helping them paint the bottom of the garage, stuff that,
yeah.
it's showing them that you're actually bothered.
Yeah.
Um, that I did that, and I listened to everything that they'd said. I asked their permission for certain things, and I know what they want to achieve. That one I was so pleased with, and it wasn't a full stage. I only did 2 out of the 3 no, 4 bedrooms and just didn't even do any virtual staging. So
Uh,
created a lovely entrance, created 2 zones in the lounge because again, it's showing people how to use it. Didn't stage the dining room, staged the kitchen boot room, reading room on the landing, and the bathrooms,
oh.
and this sauna, you know, which, fabulous, showing the benefit of having those features in your house.
Yeah.
And that one, I think it was an absolute triumph because, and that's not me blowing my own trumpet, but I suppose it is because we got a viewing the day after I'd finished and they got an offer. and
Oh,
they were
wow.
absolutely blown away, but what made it even better that this agent was absolutely on it, and that's another thing that really made me smile about this one, was that the agent got them another viewing the day after that, and they got a better offer, and
Wow,
they're
that's
kinda like, "I can't
amazing.
believe this." You know? We've had 40 odd viewings, we've had, you know, a couple of really ridiculous low offers because all people want to do is say, "Well, I've got to rip it out." Somebody's come
Mm,
in, I mean, one of the bedrooms had got a sage sink in the corner. So you either go to yourself, well, I either I either pretend it doesn't exist or I make this a sage coloured bedroom and I pull it
mm.
all together. And that's what I did. So it gave it a theme and a purpose having a sage sink. Yes, it was dated, but it showed somebody that if you can't afford to change it now, you don't need to. Because it
Yeah.
actually looks really good having this sage sink in the corner of your bedroom. It's stuff
Yeah.
like that, you know?
It's so good. You're so good. And what I find, like, your passion, your creative eye all comes through. Because as you're talking, I'm like, would have never thought of that, never thought of that. And that goes to show the value of what you do. But you never used to do this. You actually had a long career in HR
I
before you
did.
turned to property. So what made you like, and don't get me wrong, I think obviously we're all on our own paths, and I think where we've been shapes who we are, helps us in the next role and so on. But what gave you the, because obviously I love to say, yeah, slap me boss. And
Mhm,
it's some days I'm less happy about that than others because it's hard sometimes. But
mhm.
what gave you that courage to just go, yeah, I'm done with this now and I'm gonna go into my interiors and property?
Well, do you know what? If I'm really honest, I'd got to a point with my career where I'd got the job I thought I always wanted.
Mm,
I was a HR director, and when I got it, I realized I actually didn't want it. And I think that's a lesson, is that we always think we aspire to something, and sometimes when we get it, it's not what we want.
yeah,
And it was really tough, and I got quite unwell, and I'm not afraid to say that because of the things that I had to do during the COVID pandemic. And it was awful. And it affected me, but it also affected a lot of people. And I think that's where I've always that's where the empathy comes in when I'm working with my
yeah,
clients now. Um, so I got on well, and actually the business at that point, because of the nature of businesses was struggling because of the pandemic. So they needed to make cuts. I didn't want to go back after being ill. And it was one of those situations where it all collided at the same time. And I'd studied interior design about 25 years previously, just because I thought I wanted to do it. And I dabbled a little bit. But if I'm honest, I never had the balls to actually do it because I always thought, I've got kids. I've been brought up to go to uni, get a job, do the blah, blah, and do that sort of thing, only to realize, at the age of 52, as I was at the time, that I didn't want that anymore. And it just literally, the day I went to talk to work about not going back, and for them to sort of say, actually, you know, we're cutting numbers anyway, and we reached an agreement. I came up with a course for home staging, and I'm like, actually, I know about this because of the property. Why
mm,
look to do that? Didn't necessarily need to do the training, but did it, and that's where it started. Was it
yeah,
scary? Absolutely. But I kind of think that that's where this gut thing comes in.
yeah,
It was like, now's my time. If I don't do it now, I might never do this. I was
yeah,
mid creeping towards the late 50s, and I'm kind of like, if I don't do it, I'm never going to do it. I have to
yeah,
do it, and I have to give it a go. But it's brought everything together. So I think, I never really believed that, if you find something you love, you never work a day in your life. Never believed it, if I'm honest. Now I do.
yeah. I get
Yeah,
that. Yeah, yeah,
it's kind of like, yes, there's parts of my job I don't like, but when I'm doing as you've probably gathered, when I'm doing the styling, oh my God, not because I like fluffing cushions, which I also call myself that as well as a sport item. So I'm a cushion fluffer, but because I know that I'm doing something to get someone else to where they need to be,
yeah.
you know,
Yeah, and
yeah,
that's rewarding.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
it is. So yeah, and
Yeah.
now I get that. So yeah, it's been the hardest and best thing I've ever done. And I
And
would
I
go on.
No, I was gonna say it sounds difficult, but it's really inspiring because I bet you there are other women who've reached 50 or are beyond 50 and they're
Yeah,
thinking, can't do anything new. It's like, well, why not? It's just
yeah,
a number.
yeah. And I think that was what was in my head. It's kind of like, oh, I had people say to me, "Oh, I'm thinking of retiring," and I'm like, "I'm just getting going." Because no, not well, yes, somewhat out of need, and I think you can be driven by need, and that's because of the things that have gone on, obviously, and because I've got a large family. But I also think that who says you've got to pack in at a certain point in time? Who says you've got to retire?
Yeah.
I
Well, you've
look at
got yeah.
I look at people who are still working in their 80s or what have you. Nobody questions actors or actor who whatever if they're in a film at 85 or what have you, because it's like, no, that's because they're good at what they do. I'm kind of like, no, I'll do this.
Yeah, and
And
you
it's
enjoy it, like, why would you wanna stop
yeah,
something you enjoy? I
yeah,
feel like that's where the system is a bit strange, isn't it? Because
yeah,
like you, we've all done it, we're brought up to go to school, go to
yeah,
uni, get a
yeah,
job, safe, secure, pension, climb a ladder, and then retire. And
yeah,
then, do you know what? If I followed that trajectory, I'll probably retire and die because I'm not used to the lack
yeah,
of stress.
yeah.
But I think one thing I wanna touch on, just a couple more questions.
Mm.
You're a mum of 5.
Yes, I am.
5,
Yes,
right?
we have
And
five.
I think you love what you do. You're always busy. You're always
Yeah.
running your business. You're never too old to do it. I think it's amazing that you've done it. But you're a mum of 5. So
Yes, I
how
am.
on earth how old is your youngest now?
She's 13.
Right. How on earth have you juggled parenting, property, running a business, and you're writing a book?
Oh,
I
yeah,
think that's you're
yeah.
writing your own book as
I'm
well.
writing a book. Yeah,
It's like there's so much there.
yeah.
If there are other mums out there, I mean, I'm not a mum of 5, I'm a mum of 2 dogs. That's enough for me at the moment to do.
It's the
I
puppy
don't
that
and
finished me off, let me tell you. Oh my god.
I
Yeah.
don't think I could cope with humans, but the dogs are enough. But tell me, how do you manage all of that for other mums listening and thinking, I might want to do this, I might want to do that, but it's not the right time. How do you juggle it all? Or make
Because
it
I
all
actually think we underestimate ourselves. I think, if you think about these people that go through massive amounts of adversity for things that you would never, ever even think that were humanly possible. I'm not saying, I
yeah,
think we doubt our own abilities in
yeah,
that sense. And that's not that I think I'm more capable. I'm not, I'm the first to admit imposter syndrome and all of those things. But I will also say that it's not something that you just suddenly dumped in. I just didn't suddenly find myself with 5 kids. I had one daughter and we kept on going,
yeah,
and our one daughter became 4 daughters and a son effectively. And just because that's the way my life worked out. And that's that. And but you learn along the way. And yes, we have to organize everything, so that's part of it. Sometimes I feel like the most disorganized person in the world, but I can't be because I'm doing all these things.
yeah,
You know, I don't have downtime as such. So I sacrifice a lot of that stuff to be able to do that.
yeah,
Um, but I just think that you learn as you go. I always say it's like running a marathon. You know, you don't. Not many people get off a chair and go run a marathon. Okay, because you can't. You physically need
yeah,
to build up the stamina to do that, and it's different. But it's the same with me in that all these things have built up. So you just find the time to
yeah,
do them, and also you have to learn to let some things go. That's where I think age comes in, because I'm no longer precious about a lot of things that I used to stress about. I can't
yeah,
be. And I
yeah,
think that's how you manage to do it. You also become very comfortable with asking for help
yeah,
and admit that you can't do it all.
yeah.
So,
That's hard. That's hard to admit, isn't it?
it is because you're
Yeah,
expected, oh, you can have it all. I mean, that's a common thing, how to do all these things. You can have it all. Actually, you have to define what all is for yourself.
yeah,
So seeing somebody else's all, and it's never what you see, is it? Um, you know, you can do all these things if you don't set yourself boundaries or set yourself goals that actually push you to a point where you feel, oh, I can't cope.
yeah, like, they limit you in that way because they overwhelm you. Yeah,
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 but I also get my family stuck into the business.
love
You
that.
My
Yeah,
17-year-old daughter already now knows that she's coming with me to a buy-to-let, at the weekend to help us clean up after a builder,
yeah,
because, you know, that I'm getting them involved in doing it, I can then go and work, but I'm also spending time with them and we're doing something together. And
Yeah.
that people might laugh at that, but
No.
actually, if I look back on things that as a kid, I don't remember necessarily what we were doing. I remember being with the people
Yeah.
and having that relation. So it's all stuff like that, but
And she's getting involved in the business. She's,
yeah,
it's always good. I think obviously we can go into jobs and that kind
yeah,
of
yeah,
thing, but I think it's always good to have something else
yeah,
other than your
yeah,
job, your salary, your
yeah,
wage. She's learning business. So I suppose my last question then is, this chapter has just blew my mind, and I'm sure it will for a lot of people. And obviously we need to keep an eye out for your next book. But what is this? So the last question, Karen, is what do you want women particularly to take away from your story in the chapter?
I think is that to not be hard on yourself, to actually realize that if you're sitting there thinking, oh my God, she's got it all, or she can do this, or she seems sorted, to actually realize, and that's why I was honest in what I did, that actually some people have actually, it's been a long haul, or there's an awful lot going on behind
Yeah,
that they are not going to tell to the world
yeah,
because it's not pretty, you know I wouldn't make a very good speaker at a property training course saying I went into it with no training and lost £200,000. But actually, I probably got more out of it than I learnt from any training I've done. So, I think it's to not be too hard on yourself and to also really do cut yourself some slack because actually
yeah,
you're far more capable than you think you are.
yeah,
Yeah, I do, and to take support from, well, primarily other women around you, but also the men around you, because you can't do it yourself. You cannot do it all on your own, and don't let anyone tell you that they can, because they can't. Everyone is as capable as anyone else. It's that simple. You know, you
and your
just
network, like you said, the support from other women. I
yeah.
think it's hard for women to reach out to other women, but it's I actually, because there is some women who don't behave morally in the same way there are lots of men who don't, but
Yeah.
actually there's something really special in the sisterhood.
Mm.
And if they've got that trust, I think, yeah, amazing. So thank you so much for coming on the
Well,
podcast.
no, thank you for asking me. It
Right,
was a pleasure
how
to
can people
start the
follow
book.
you? How can they follow
Okay,
you?
well, yeah, I'm primarily on Instagram, but I do have all social media, so Facebook. I've got the Surf House Interiors, but also my own little slightly lighter hearted, which I need to work on, which is Karen at Surf House. Um, so that's sharing a little bit more of what I do and some of my own more amateur pictures and things like that of what have you. And we're going to be doing a little bit of behind the scenes because actually,
Oh.
home staging sounds very lovely and it's not very glamorous at all. Um, if you could have seen me a week ago covered in dust, lumping boxes in and out of an old HMO in Barnsley, you might not have been as impressed. And so you kind of gotta, that's me.
Oh, well, thank you. Right. Make sure everyone that's following and listening, make sure you give Karen a follow. And obviously, if you want some staging doing, which will help the house, any flip or anything that you've got on, it will help it sell quicker. And that's what she's proven. That's what the research says. And of course, buy the book. It's Women in Property Volume 1. Volume 2 will be out soon. So thanks, everyone. Thanks, Karen, for
Thank
coming.
you.